welcome everyone. We're still alive. We're still doing it. So let's stay in touch and let's see what we got. So just let you know that we've now upgraded the Zoom account, so we're not limited to time. Well, actually, there's a 24-hour limit, but I don't think we'll hit that. So we're okay now on time. Reminder that the project vote for Close Up is this Friday on the 24th. So if you haven't got your submissions in yet, if you could get them in, I'd appreciate it. The voting, I'll open that on probably Sunday night or Monday morning. And then I'll announce the winners on this call on Wednesday the 29th. So that'll give you a couple of days to get your votes in as well. Just because things went reasonably well last week, I thought I would give it a go with showing you a bit more of Lightroom. So I've found a couple of little things that might be of interest to you. They also work in Photoshop, so I'll show you them both in Lightroom and Photoshop so that you can see the difference. If you haven't got a large screen in front of you, you may struggle to see some of it, but I'll go as slow as I can so that you can see what's what. I'll unmute you just so that if I do anything you want me to stop and go back, then you can actually say that. So I'll unmute you all now. Let me share my screen with you. Share screen. So you should now see my Lightroom screen.
Yep.
And I've got 3 photos from Iceland to talk you through. And I'm going to use these 2 little techniques with these 3 photos just to give you a taste of what to do with them. If you know about them, then apologies, but I thought I would just start here. So let's look at the first one. This is a beach scene, and I wanted to highlight a couple of things. Firstly, take a look at the horizon. It's a bit bent, and that's lens distortion. So the first thing to correct really is the lens distortion. Why is it distorted? If I bring that over a bit, that might help. If you look at the metadata for the photo and come down to here, you'll see that the focal length is 17 millimeters. So it's a very wide angle lens. And what that means is that you get the fisheye effect. And in this case, you can see that the horizon has got that kind of a fisheye barrel to it. So it'd be good if we can correct that. Now, Lightroom and Photoshop have very good lens correction capability. So I'm going to move into the develop area of Lightroom. So here's the photo again, but now I'm in develop. And again, over here, come down here. And if you look on lens correction, see lens correction there. If I open that up, it says enable profile corrections. And if I turn that on, watch the horizon. Now the reason is that Lightroom and Photoshop are clever in that they can take the metadata from your picture which says what lens you're using. And they've got the profiles of the lenses. So in this case, it knows I was using a Nikon lens. It knows that it was a 17 to 55 lens, and it knows it was at 17 mil. So it's applied the right corrections for that situation. Just one click, I've corrected the problem with the lens. Yeah. So I thought I would show you that. Now I'm going to stop sharing that screen, and now I'm going to share Photoshop, because you may not be aware that if you've got Photoshop, you can do the same thing. So here's Photoshop, and here is the raw file again of the same picture. So if I launch that, you can correct the lens in 2 places with a raw file. So this is Camera Raw, and if you look up here, you'll see that one of them, this one here, looks a little bit like a lens. And if I click on that, I've got the same enable profile corrections. Watch the horizon, off, on, off, on. So the same thing happens in Photoshop as well. And if you're using Photoshop Elements, you'll have the same Camera Raw, so you have the same capability. But if I turn that off for now and just open the image into Photoshop, so I've still got the curve there. What I can do is make an adjustment, and the way I do that is if I go up to my filter settings, and then there's a filter called lens correction, and I can apply the correction there. Now already it's started with a Nikon. I can choose the camera model, choose the lens model, and apply it. And actually it knows that here because it's already detected the profile. So you can do this lens correction thing in both Photoshop and in Lightroom. So I just wanted to show you that. So I'm going to go back to Lightroom now, because the other things I wanted to show you are in both, but I was just going to start with Lightroom again.
Oh, Ben, running around.
Right, so I've corrected the lens distortion, and I'm in Develop. And what I was going to do was show the cropping tool. And yeah, the cropping tool is the cropping tool, right? It's not that exciting, but I discovered something this week that I didn't know, and I thought I would share it with you. And I'll apply it to these 3 photos that I've got in Lightroom, just to show you how you might use it. You may or may not like what it does. That's entirely up to you, but I thought it would be interesting just to show you. And particularly on this photo, you'll see that I think it makes a bit of a difference. So if I go to the crop tool, which is here in Lightroom, I get the standard rule of thirds grid come up, that you can crop the photo and keep it to the correct rule of third proportions if you want to follow rule of third. And as you see on this, you've got the feature, the main feature of the photograph. Ooh, lots of feedback. I'm going to mute you. If I can find out how to do that. Hang on, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to mute you all for now. So again, as I was saying, I've got rule of thirds on the screen, and the main feature of the photograph is this rock in the foreground, and it's right on the intersection of the rule of thirds. So you'd think, well, that's cool, that's good, that ticks all the boxes. Why don't we just leave it at that? But there's a feature on this grid that you can use, and they're called overlays. And Photoshop has them too, and I'll show you how to see that in Photoshop in a moment. But if I go up to the tools, I can see there, crop guide overlay. Do you all see that? Can you give me a thumbs up? As you're muted, but thumbs up, you can see that. So you can see crop guide overlay as part of tools. And as you see over here, we've got thirds, which is what I'm on at the moment, rule of thirds. And then you've got all these. And what I'll do is I'll cycle through them so that you can see what they do. But there's a short key for this. So rather than do that from this menu, I'm going to just use the shortcut key. And it's hard to remember, is O for overlay. So if I just hit the O key, it gives me the diagonal overlay, the next one in that list. And if I hit it again, it gives me the triangular one. And if I hit it again, I get the golden ratio one. This one is a golden ratio spiral. You'll see that the spiral is here and it's saying that's the focal point. I'll come back to that one. And then O again gives you different aspect ratios. So 5:7 print, 4:5 print, there's a 2:3 up here. Gives you different aspect ratios and helps you to crop your photo to those aspect ratios if you want to. So that's quite useful. If I hit it again, you get the full grid. And now I'm back to my thirds again. So for this photo, I was quite interested in the golden spiral. So let me go back to the golden spiral, which is this one. But the spiral's in the wrong place. Yeah, the spiral's got to be on the main feature of the photo, which is the rock in the foreground. If I hold the shift key down and hit O again, it moves the spiral round. And I can move the spiral all over the place. And maybe that's the place I need it to be in. So now if I crop the picture and get the rock on the golden now, is that a better photo than the other one? It's entirely up to you whether you agree or not. But personally, for this particular photograph, I think that's better. It actually puts that rock much more in the foreground and emphasizes what's going on. And that's because I used this guide instead of the standard rule of thirds one, which we're all used to. So I thought that might be something that you'd be interested in. Now, how do you do that in Photoshop? So here we are in Photoshop, and again, it's on the rule of thirds. If I hit the crop tool and click on there, we get the rule of thirds. And if I go up to, I can't remember where it was now. Where did I? Oh yeah, here it is. So if you'll see where the cursor is, there's a little grid symbol. And if I click on that, there they are. So the same ones. So if I go for the golden ratio again, sorry, not golden ratio, I want golden spiral, don't I? There's my golden spiral. And again, I can crop doing the same thing as I did before. Yeah, so that's quite useful, I think. It may or may not be something that you're interested in, but I thought I would share it. Let's go back to Lightroom, because now you've got the principle and the fact that you can do it in Lightroom or in Photoshop. Let me okay that. I'm now going to go to this photo. And again, this is a photo I took in Iceland. Let's look at those overlays.
Love that picture, Ray. It's brilliant.
So this is Dima, my son-in-law, and he wanted a picture, a portrait picture with the ice. Now there's the golden spiral, and that's not working at all. So let's cycle through. Shift O. No, just O on its own takes us through these again. And the one I was interested in was this one. I thought, I wonder if that one would work. So I started playing around with this one. And again, I think that works better than using a standard rule of thirds. So it's a matter of playing around with these things and experimenting with them. And if you like the result, then it's good. If you don't, then don't use them.
Ray, are they in Elements or not? Do you know?
As far as I know, it's in Photoshop Elements as well, yeah.
Okay.
I don't quite know where it is, but you'll have to hunt around for it. But it's, if I nip back to Photoshop, you may find it's in a similar position. You got this, you got a little gear wheel up there, and that's for other settings for the crop view. But you've also got this view here, and it will represent whatever this is. So I would look around in the top bar or around there and see what you can find. It may also, you'll find it possibly in filters, but I haven't looked around in Elements to find it that way. If all else fails, of course, Google it. So go back to Lightroom, and I've got one more picture to show you, which uses a different one. So this is a picture of there's Dima, my son-in-law, and there's Phil, my son. So here, again, the diagonal's not really doing anything for us. So I was looking at the triangular one and wondered if that would help, and decided to bring it down so that the intersection points were of the cliff face in the distance there and the beginning of the people in the picture there. Excuse me. And again, I think that kind of helps me compose this picture. Again, you may have a different view, and that's fine. So yeah, those two features, there's the lens correction thing to consider. It's always worth looking at what it does, and if it works for you, if it improves the picture for you, then great. If it doesn't, then obviously, you don't need to use it. And then the other thing, of course, is this cropping with the overlay. You're not stuck with rule of thirds every time. You can try others, because we've always said, it's called rule of thirds, but rules are meant to be broken. You don't have to observe any of them. And what that overlay does is actually give you a few alternatives of using those guidelines. So there we are. That's all I had tonight. I just thought I'd give you that little tidbit.
Right.
Yeah.
In the drop-down menu of cropping, you've got items like freeform and so on. What does freeform exactly mean? How would that adjust the size of your image?
This is in Lightroom.
This is in Lightroom, yeah.
Let me go back.
I believe it's in Lightroom.
And this is in the crop tool.
Crop.
Yeah.
And then you're still in the, I went to the 2/3 one.
All right, let me move to the rule of thirds, yeah.
And I believe there was something in like freeform, or actually...
Yeah, what you can
original
do,
and freeform. You've got, there it is, is that it?
Well,
original, custom.
What you can do is, at the moment, it says original, and then the padlock is locked. So what that means is that when I adjust this picture, doesn't matter how I move the mouse, whether it's up, down, left or right, it maintains the aspect ratio of the picture. If I undo the padlock, I can actually do anything I want with the picture, make it square, make it oblong. I've unlocked the aspect ratio. So if I go back to original again, if you do the drop down list next to the padlock, it gives you a few choices. So you've got a 1x1, for example, a square. If you're going to do a 5x7 print, it'll do a 5x7 aspect ratio for you, which you can rotate, and so forth. You've got various different choices there. I tend to stick with original mostly, but sometimes I tweak it. Now, when you're printing prints for the project vote, for example, you can set a custom one to A4 if you want to. Why there isn't an A4 in this list, I don't know. So you have to go into custom and then enter.
American.
Say again?
Because it's American.
Yes.
They don't use the 8 sizes in America.
Yes. So you need to do 29.7 and 21 because those are the centimetre sizes for A4. If you put those into the custom, you'll get an A4 aspect ratio to your crop. And again, if you leave it locked, that means you can crop it however you want and know that when you print, it's going to print to A4 aspect ratio. So all of these things are also available in Photoshop. And, you know, for some of you who may not be using either of those, if you're using Affinity or anything like that, you'll find similar functions in the similar area of the menu systems to do the same thing. They're all much of a muchness, these programs. They all work in very similar ways. So this custom aspect ratio is a very good way of doing that. The other thing while we're talking about cropping, I want to go back to my my original picture here. Now, when I ended up cropping it with the golden spiral, we kind of lost the horizon. But you remember I was getting a little bit agitated about the wonky horizons that were coming in on the project vote a couple of months ago. Here's a really quick way to get the horizon straight. So you go into the crop mode. Let me get rid of that for the moment. And you'll notice that that horizon is slightly wonky. There's a real quick and easy way to make it flat. If I go to the spirit level here, click and drag. Hello, didn't mean to do that. Click and drag on the line, it will automatically adjust that to a horizontal line for me. I can also do it on verticals. So if there's a vertical line in the picture, which I think there is in this one, I can do it on the post because there's no real horizon to measure against. So if I draw a line on the post, it will make that vertical for me. So this little tool here, the angle tool, if you, actually it should be at 0, silly me. If it's set at 0, you just grab it and it's like a spirit level. So you just draw, drag, let go, and you've now got, oh actually I see what it's done. It's told me it's rotated it by minus 1.16 degrees. That's what it's done. So
Ray, I've forgotten where that was already. Can you show me where it was?
Sure. So I'm in the develop module.
Okay.
And I'm in the crop tool.
Yep.
And then the angle tool is the second, it's the one underneath the aspect ratio one. It's
Okay.
the angle tool. And there's an auto button there, which does work quite often. It will try and figure out the angle for you if you press the auto button. But equally, having the spirit level is quite useful as well. So yeah, we've covered lens correction and the crop tool today.
That's good. It's useful.
Very useful, Ray.
Now, with your lens profile on the lens corrections you see here, if you haven't got a lens profile there, then have a hunt around on the internet, because a lot of the lens manufacturers will make profiles for you and you can add them into your Lightroom setup. So if you can't find it in the drop-down list, there's a list of manufacturers there that you can choose. It should pick it up from the metadata, but if it doesn't, you may have to manually configure it. And if it doesn't pick it up from the metadata, it might be because it doesn't have a profile in there, in which case, take a look at the lens manufacturer's website, and with a bit of luck, there'll be a profile to download. So, all else I had to say today was just to remind you the next meeting is next week on the 29th, same time, same meeting notice, same link. We ended up with 26 people online, brilliant. What I can't figure out yet is how to create an attendee list, because it'd be really useful. Darren, what are you doing? It would be really useful for us just to keep a log of who's joining us. Sue asked a very good question. You know, are there people that we haven't heard from yet? Sorry, you've been on mute so far, so I've just unmuted your unmute all. Sue asked a very good question the other day. Do we have an attendee list? Because there may be people that we've not heard of and they may be unwell. We don't know. So if you know of anyone that's unwell, then do let us know. We'll reach out to them. But I haven't yet found a way of creating an attendee list. That would be quite useful, but we'll have to think about that. But if you do know of someone, do let us know.
Ray, could you do it? You've got the chat option there. If everyone just put their name down on chat, could you get a list that way?
That would be very useful because the chat is saved as part of the recording. So if you wouldn't mind just popping your name in the chat, that would be helpful. So yeah.
Where's that?
And now that we're subscribing to this service, there are more admin functions. So after this call, I'm going to go through the admin functions, and it may well be that it creates a list for me. But that's a very good suggestion, Ray. Thanks. So yeah, that would be a good
So
one.
at the bottom of your screen, you should.
Yeah,
see
I've just
some
seen it.
icons. Yeah.
Yeah, should see a chat icon.
There is a list of participants, and the participants, you click that, the whole list comes up.
Yeah, the whole list is there.
Say that again.
There's a
The whole list is there.
There's a list of participants, but I don't know how to save that.
do a screenshot on it.
Yes, could do, I suppose. Yeah, there's another good one. Yeah, thank you.
If you click on the three dots, it says save chat.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
So you should be able to do it, Ray.
Yes, I think it does it automatically for me as the host, but it also means you can do it too.
I love that hat.
Chris is a
I've
cat.
got a different one for next week. I've got plenty of hats, do not fear. This one's been all over the country.
I use Zoom for, or rather the choir that I belong to, they use Zoom for their meetings now, rehearsals. And because I was reasonably familiar with Zoom, I started mucking about with the virtual backgrounds. And whilst we were on the call, I quickly knocked up a halo of logos of the choir. And I was then visiting different islands and different virtual backgrounds. And it became the point where they're waiting next week to find out where I'm going to be. So they've set a challenge now. I'm going to have to figure something out.
Where's Raymond?
Where's Raymond? Yeah.
It's Chris as a cat that's freaking me out.
Yeah, he said in the chat that he's got a problem with the video or something.
Ah,
Attention span's very good.
But Paul, we need to diagnose your audio problem. All I can see is I shouldn't worry too much. It's the first time we've been able to shut him up. All right, guys. Well, it's 8 o'clock. We've had our half an hour. Oh, there's one bit of news I've got for you.
Yeah, ask about Paul then.
we've been. I haven't seen the other Paul on here since we've been starting this. You know, the guy that
Isn't it Walker
Snappy,
is
the
saying it, I
Snappy
think?
Snaps Paul.
Paul Walker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's submitting photos for the project boat. So he's
Okay, cool. Okay.
And also, I had a chat with Colin Neville yesterday.
Oh yeah, Colin. Yeah.
He's had real computer issues.
Okay.
He got done by a scammer. So he
Oh,
had to get his desktop and laptop reformatted by the tech gurus down at Birdwood. So he's lost his email address. He's lost everything. So he's in a right old state. That's why he's not on, but he is alive. The first thing he said when he called me was, "Hello, I'm still alive."
Still alive.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are two that I have heard of. But yeah, if you think of any more, and we'll try and reach out. Not everyone responds to the emails, so I think I might put an email out to say, look, if you weren't on the video call, at least just say you're still alive. So we know you're around.
About the father and son, Ray.
Oh, we saw them today, didn't we? We saw them walking by our window today, so haven't seen them on here.
Not to speak with,
Well, we
but
didn't see them speak to,
recognise them when they
but we
walk
saw
by.
them walk past today.
Okay,
Neighbourhood
so
watch.
they're still around.
Nosy Parker.
Yeah, well, the trouble with me emailing people to say, you know, are you still alive is it's quite rude to say, are you still alive? But also it kind of puts pressure on people to join the video chat, and I don't want to do that. I mean, join if you want to join, but I don't want to pressure people.
It was the camera that I recognised. I saw him carrying a Nikon with a big lens on it. Oh, I know.
I'll give them a message.
Yeah, if you see anyone that you haven't seen on the video chat, then do say, do acknowledge the fact that they are still alive.
Didn't have my lens hood, did he go, Darren?
It's Nikon, mate. Nikon.
I've got the new one
Quality
anyway.
stuff, mate. Quality stuff.
New one come anyway.
All right, guys, I'll call it quits there. Thanks ever so much, and see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye all, stay safe.
Bye.
Yeah.
Of course.